How's it going? Today we are going to discuss the long-awaited question of how does the attack mechanics in this game actually work? A lot of people seem to get confused. Not entirely sure how else to explain this other than to show you. Okay. So, for example, if I hit attack here, you're going to notice there is a little blue flag by their name. Okay. This little blue flag indicates that they're the hero captain, otherwise known as you know, they're kind of the leader that is going to be carrying over their skill. More importantly, the very first skill. Okay, because this skill here, that at the very top, is a skill that every time you send a reinforcement to a rally, that skill is the one that is actually going to be pulled over and used. Now, this is relevant because a lot of people like to essentially join in, and what they'll tell you is, okay, a lot of people will join in, and they'll join in with someone like, oh, I don't know, like somebody like this, for example. And the problem with that is you're only bringing over an expedition skill that increases hunting income. That's obviously not going to do your rally any good, so don't send that. Well, now, if you send somebody like Jesse, for example, that's 20 to 25% damage up for all troops. That's obviously going to do you more benefit. Now, there are obviously instances where it may make more sense to use someone like Patrick, for example, because that's going to increase the health of all troops. And you may want that more in defense, typically, than you do in offense. But, yeah, you can just as easily look at somebody like Bati and see the benefit of reducing damage taken by 20% as valuable, just as much as you can looking at someone's skill like Jasser, who's also going to increase damage up by 25% for all troops. Again, these are things that, they're practical and you'll see people use them, but I point this out because it's something that a lot of people can't seem to grasp. And it's really, really annoying when you're sending out rallies, whether that even be on, something as simple as the bear, or if you're just going around attacking players. It's a very simple concept to understand, but yet very few people actually follow through with it or pay any attention to what they're doing. Okay, now the other detail, obviously, if you're the rally lead or the hero lead, whatever, okay, obviously your skills are all going to get used. Okay, so rather than being the rally joiner, your expedition skills are all that are going to get used in a fight. Now, there are a couple of things you need to pay very close attention to, which is where it says all troops versus allied troops versus your troops. This is going to vary, so I'll show you an example. So for example here, it says every flame, no matter how small, can ignite a roaring fire, granting all troop attack a 20% chance to deal 40% damage per turn for 3 turns. Increasing attack for all troops for 20%, increasing enemy troop damage taken by 40%. Okay, these are all things that are, how do you say, they're relevant because it's all going to factor in whenever you're let's say you look at Geronimo, right? That's 25% for all troops, 25% for all troops, and a 20% chance of stun. Okay. Again, these are little things, but I mean, they add up. If you look at someone like Molly, for example, okay, a stun of 20%, a damage up of 50, and a 25% damage up ability. But obviously, the carry over skill is going to be the stun, which is not as valuable, okay, compared to increasing your damage. Now, for example, you look at someone like Philly. She may not have access to, she's a Gen 2 hero. Okay, but here you can get, 10% of the current health of all troops for 6 turns. You can also get 25% chance of dealing 200% damage if you're sending the rally. And then you've also got the chance of stunning the target for 1 turn. Most relevant thing here is the heal up is going to give your troops a longer period of time to survive. Okay? So I think you kind of get the idea. But again, if you want kind of a synopsis of some heroes that come to mind, like Cian, for example. Okay, there's an attack up that goes up by 25%. Obviously, if you send her in a lead, that's not going to do you any good having a healing speed up increase, because this is just the infirmary that you're adjusting here. Because unlike some skills, you'll kind of see the difference between an expedition skill and normal traditional skills like this, because they'll have the little, pair of swords. I mean, that's really kind of a good way to kind of make heads or tails of what you're working with. Um, I guess something else that kind of comes to mind is, with everything that I've shown you so far, right? And this is just regarding the heroes and sending attacks and stuff. A lot of people don't really fully understand the fact that you can change your compositions. A lot of people think, oh, I'll just send, for example, you can send no infantry, no lancers, and send all marksmen, right? Very few people are going to do this, because the problem is when you're attacking, it's not changing the formation when you change the leads. Therefore, if you go inf, range, cav, or in this case, infantry, marksman, lancer, I say cav, but lancer. The point being is that you're better off being mixed, but you can move this percentage around if you want. For example, you can go a little heavier on marksman and a little heavier on infantry and lower your lancer count. You can just as easily equalize them and make them even, and try to go for an even blend. And there's not really a wrong answer here, okay? What I can tell you is whenever you're sending attacks on something that, like for example, if you know that you're going to be attacking somebody that's got a stupid amount of infantry, right? And it's just all infantry in there, the only logical conclusion you can make is that you need to send all marksmen, because marksmen counter infantry. Obviously, if you want to counter marksmen, you send lancers. And if you want to counter your bloody frickin' mess of a problem lancers, you use infantry. Obviously, when it comes to actually fighting, and not all of your lancers are going to necessarily have a problem going through your infantry to hit your marksmen. So this is why you oftentimes don't see people sending just one comp. They'll oftentimes equalize it for this reason, because there's not a whole lot of benefit to try and move your composition around too much. In my experience, what you often find yourself doing more often than not is, again, going through those hero skills and checking to see who reigned what with what heroes, and then the tiers of said heroes, as well as the tier of said skills. And obviously, there's also the other factors that come into mind. Like, if you're wondering what do you improve, you got to both improve their skills, their exclusive gear. You need to work on the actual hero gear itself and mastery forge it to get more attack stats. Okay, there's a lot of that involved. You also have, obviously, the tier of the hero itself that matters. Okay? These are all things relevant to the actual march itself. So when you're going around and attacking people, these are things that are going to matter. Of course, there's also the fact that you have your chief gear, okay, and then you have charms that you then upgrade for more stats. So you have both the gear itself that you upgrade as well as the charms to said gear. Again, you don't really get this until Furnace 22, so you don't really need to worry about that right away, but just when you're starting out, these are things that are really important to understand. Outside of that, you do have boosts. You do have, troop lethality, attack, defense, health boosts that you can proc. The main thing here is that if and when you proc these, you just need to be really weary of the fact that if and when you do decide, you're obviously going to have a timer on that, and they are not cheap. It's like 2,000 at 10%, and it's a stupid amount at 20%, okay? Oftentimes they're earned just by doing fortress battles and fighting, but, that's, again, another conversation all on its own. One thing that I think a lot of people ignore is that if you tap here at the top left, you can actually see what your stats are. And this will give you an idea of what your core stats are. Of course, whenever you're going around and attacking. So let's say I decide that I'm going to go ahead and hit this account. You can always tap here at the top, and it will tell you what your attack stats are in this march. Again, something really helpful, but yet very few people seem to utilize. Obviously, the flags at the very top, you can save formations and hero combinations if you so choose. And then you can just hit the save button and you're good to go. But outside of that, at least whenever you're fighting, for the most part, whenever you're hitting people's gathering tiles, you won't really lose any troops. If you hit individual bases, you will. Tends to be that you're often at an advantage if you don't attack players, unless there's a significant difference in stats. And we're talking like 200 or 300% before it really becomes pretty negligible. And a lot of people starting out are really, really tiny and very, very weak, in part because they don't waste any other time in the research center. I can tell you the guy that spent most of his time in the growth tree and then started doing the battle trees, obviously going to be doing a lot better than most people. But again, these are things that are often ignored, and then when they actually pay attention to it, they'll notice. Eventually, you do get access to pets after Sunfire Castle. So again, when you get there, that's just another stepping stone that you'll have for attack stats. Eventually, there's Fire Crystal, and then you have more bonuses and stats on top of that you'll have to earn. And I mean, I can go on, but I think this kind of gives you an idea of what to look at for, and then also things to kind of improve on. And hopefully this video helped you, and if you did, feel free to leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys to the next video.